The story began on an overcast October afternoon when the chill of autumn whispered through the playground, scattering golden leaves across empty swings and damp slides. Xavier Evans pulled his worn jacket tighter around his shoulders, the fabric thinning in places but still holding warmth, the kind of warmth that reminded him of responsibility more than comfort. His 6-year-old son, Noah, was laughing on the yellow spiral slide, his small face flushed with joy. For Noah, the park was a kingdom, a world where laughter echoed louder than worry. For Xavier, it was a sanctuary that cost nothing, a brief reprieve from the calculations and compromises that governed every day of his life. Rent was due next week, groceries had to stretch until Friday, and the pile of medical bills from Noah's asthma treatments grew heavier on the counter each month. But here, on Sunday afternoons, none of that mattered. Here, Noah could breathe freely, and Xavier could pretend that life wasn't so fragile. "Dad, watch this." Noah shouted from the top of the slide, excitement bursting from his voice. Xavier smiled, raising a hand in acknowledgement, forcing the warmth into his expression even as the wind bit at his fingers. "I'm watching, buddy. Show me what you've got." Noah's small form disappeared into the slide, his squeal of delight carrying across the park as he tumbled out onto the soft mulch below. Watching him, Xavier felt that familiar tug in his chest, a mix of pride and sorrow that had become his constant companion since his wife, Emily, passed away 3 years ago. At 32, he hadn't imagined himself a widower, raising a child alone. The grief had dulled over time, but the loneliness lingered in quiet moments like this, when laughter echoed and she wasn't there to share it. He glanced around the nearly empty park. The sky was gray, the kind of gray that hinted at rain but never followed through, and the air was sharp with the scent of fallen leaves. Most families had stayed home, avoiding the chill. That was why he liked this place, it was theirs on days like this. But today, someone else occupied the solitude. A woman sat alone on a bench near the pond, her attention fixed on a laptop balanced on her knees. Even from a distance, she looked out of place in this humble setting. Her camel-colored coat looked expensive, the fabric falling in soft, deliberate lines. Her dark hair was pulled neatly into a bun, and a pair of designer sunglasses perched on her nose despite the dim light. She typed quickly, as though the world might fall apart if she stopped for a breath. "Dad, can I have my inhaler?" Noah's small voice broke through his thoughts. He was at Xavier's side now, slightly winded, his chest rising fast. In an instant, Xavier's focus sharpened. "Of course, buddy. Easy now," he said, reaching into the backpack beside him. He handed over the inhaler, watching carefully as Noah used it, counting the seconds like a prayer. When Noah's breathing eased, Xavier exhaled too. "Better?" he asked softly. Noah nodded. "Can I go on the swings now?" "Sure thing, buddy. I'll be right here." Noah ran off again, full of life as if nothing had happened. That resilience never stopped amazing him. As Xavier sat down on a nearby bench, sketch pad in hand, he tried to shift his thoughts. He opened to a blank page and began outlining a logo he'd been working on for a small local bakery. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills, sometimes. He had always loved art, the feel of pencil to paper, the process of creation, but now it had become survival, each project another week of groceries or another payment toward Noah's inhalers. "Excuse me." A voice interrupted gently. Xavier looked up. The woman from the pond stood before him, holding out something blue. "Is this yours?" she asked. It was Noah's knit hat, the one Emily had made before she passed. Xavier blinked, realizing he hadn't even noticed it had blown away. "Yeah," he said, standing to take it. "Thank you. I didn't even see it go." She smiled, the kind of polite, practiced smile of someone used to social grace. It was tumbling across the grass like it had a mind of its own. Up close, she was striking, calm, composed, the faint scent of perfume just brushing the air between them. There was something about her presence that demanded notice, though not in an obvious way. "I'm Xavier," he said, surprising himself with the introduction. "Kira," she replied, her voice even, deliberate. "Kira Owens." Before he could say more, Noah's voice carried over from the swings. "Dad, look how high I'm going." Xavier turned and waved. "That's my boy, Noah. He's got more energy than I know what to do with." Kira's gaze followed his. Her smile softened. "He seems like a great kid." "The best," Xavier said, his tone warm but tired. "Though between his energy and his asthma, he keeps me busy." He regretted the admission immediately, but Kira only nodded, her expression thoughtful. "My nephew has asthma too," she said. "Those medications can be a real challenge." "Yeah," Xavier agreed quietly. "That's one way to put it." For a moment, silence hung between them, not uncomfortable but heavy with unspoken understanding. "Do you come here often?" she asked, shifting the conversation. "Every Sunday," he said. "Rain or shine. It's our thing." He caught himself before adding, "because it's free," and instead finished with, "It's our special time together." Kira's eyes fell on the sketch pad in his lap. "You're an artist?" "Graphic designer," he clarified. "Freelance." "May I see?" she asked, gesturing to the pad. He hesitated but handed it over. She studied his work carefully, her gaze steady and analytical. "This is really good," she said finally. "The font choice feels warm and approachable but still refined. Perfect for a bakery trying to balance charm and professionalism." Xavier blinked. "That's exactly what I was aiming for." He couldn't hide his surprise. "Do you work in design or marketing or something?" "Something like that," she said with a small smile. "I work with a lot of brands." Before he could ask more, Noah ran back, hungry and breathless. "Dad, can we eat our sandwiches now?" "Sure thing," Xavier said, ruffling his hair. He turned to Kira, awkwardly aware of his modest lunch compared to her polished appearance. "Well, it was nice meeting you." "Likewise," she said, returning his pad. "Enjoy your lunch." As she walked away, Xavier watched her go, feeling an inexplicable curiosity about this woman who seemed both distant and oddly familiar. She didn't fit the world of cracked benches and peanut butter sandwiches, yet she had stopped for them, noticed them. That alone made her stand out. They ate quietly as Noah talked about school, about ducks, about how he'd build a rocket ship one day. Xavier nodded and smiled, half listening, his mind occasionally wandering back to Kira on the bench by the pond. Later, as they fed the ducks, their paths crossed again. She looked up from her laptop and smiled. "Feeding the ducks?" "Yup," Noah said proudly. "We brought special duck food. Bread makes them sick." "That's very thoughtful," she said, glancing at Xavier with approval. Without thinking, he asked, "Would you like to join us?" She paused, then closed her laptop. "You know what? I would." Together, they stood by the water, tossing handfuls of seed, Noah carefully explaining the rules of feeding ducks. She listened, laughed, and followed his lead as if the world outside that small park didn't exist. Watching them, Xavier felt something stir inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't attraction exactly, not yet, but recognition. The quiet recognition of another soul carrying weight, seeking light in small, ordinary places. By the time the afternoon sun dipped low, Kira was laughing freely, her polished composure melting into something real. And when Noah, tired but happy, leaned against Xavier's side, he thought to himself that maybe this day, this fleeting, ordinary Sunday, was the start of something neither of them had expected, because sometimes, the people who look the most out of place are exactly where they're meant to be. The following week unfolded in its usual rhythm of exhaustion and small victories. Xavier's days were a blur of client calls, unpaid invoices, and deadlines that came too fast, while his nights were spent designing until his eyes burned from the screen's glow. Yet through it all, Noah's laughter was the thread that kept him steady. Every evening, as he tucked his son into bed, Noah would chatter about ducks, playground adventures, and how Miss Kira might visit the park again next Sunday. Xavier would smile, brushing a hand through his son's hair, and say something non-committal like, "We'll see, buddy." But deep down, he knew he was thinking about her too. Sunday arrived with soft sunlight breaking through the clouds, a rare warmth in late October. As they approached the familiar playground, Xavier tried not to expect anything. Life had taught him that hope was a fragile thing, best handled carefully. Yet when he saw her, Kira Owens, sitting on the same bench near the pond, a coffee cup beside her laptop, her face lifting into a genuine smile as she noticed them, his heart stuttered in his chest. "You came back," he said, unable to hide his surprise. "I had some unfinished business in the city," she replied lightly, but there was a flicker in her eyes, something softer, as if she was glad to see them too. Noah ran ahead, greeting her with the open enthusiasm only a child could offer. "We brought duck food again. The special kind." "Of course you did," Kira said, smiling down at him. What would the ducks do without their experts? The afternoon unfolded in a comfortable rhythm that felt almost rehearsed, like a song they all knew by heart. Noah ran between the swings and the pond while Xavier and Kira talked, their conversations weaving between small talk and something more meaningful. When Xavier and Noah left the park, he found himself replaying that simple exchange in his head. She might still be in town. She might come back. That night, after Noah had fallen asleep, Xavier stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. He thought about Kira, her confidence, her laughter, the way her eyes softened when she watched Noah. There was something about her that didn't quite fit the picture she painted. She said she worked in business, but the way she analyzed design work, the precision in her comments, the subtle air of authority, it all hinted at something bigger. Yet, strangely, he didn't want to know. Knowing might break whatever fragile thing they were building. The week that followed was harder than usual. A client delayed payment, Noah caught a mild cold, and Xavier spent 2 nights in a row working past midnight. But through it all, there was the thought of Sunday, the quiet hope that she'd be there again, and she was. By then, seeing her had become more than a coincidence. It was comfort. She brought warmth to the cold, laughter to the exhaustion, and an unexpected sense of belonging to a man who'd spent years feeling alone. As they sat by the pond, the late autumn wind curling around them, Kira turned to him and said softly, "Do you ever feel like life pushed you down a road you never meant to take?" Xavier looked out over the water, the ducks gliding across it in lazy circles. "Every day," he admitted. "But sometimes, those roads still lead to the right places." She smiled faintly. "Maybe this one does too." And for the first time in years, Xavier dared to believe she might be right.